Hey, good morning. How are you?
We're doing well, and it's great to have you. Tell us first about Redneck Island. Tell us about the show, what it's like, and maybe how hosting it is different at all than performing, let's say, on a pro wrestling show.
Well, the name of the show is Redneck Island, and we had the season premiere last week, and it set an all-time number for viewership on in CMT's history. So I'm quite proud of that number. The show did real well, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Tomorrow night, Saturday at 9/8 Central, episode 2 comes on, and we've got 8 more weeks to follow after that. So I had a hell of a damn time on this show, and I really enjoy it. What we did, we got 14 rednecks, brought them to my island. I divided them up into 2 teams, and I put them through these countrified challenges, strength, endurance, brain power, whatever it is. And these 2 teams compete against each other. The losing team will come to my place, and they'll vote one of their own members off the island. Now, we'll continue this all through the season until we get down to our final redneck, and that redneck wins $100,000. It's a lot of fun. We put these people through the paces. They're good folks. They're a little stressed because they're away from home, their loved ones, and they've never been in a situation like this. There's a lot of comedy, a lot of humor, a lot of competition, and the biggest thing is you ain't got to be a redneck to enjoy the show.
Right, and it looks pretty wild. I did not get to catch the first season, but I've seen the ads for the second, and we'll check it out. And it's something to see you in that kind of sheriff's position, Steve, because you thrive so much in that kind of role. Wrestling fans might remember you hosting the Tough Enough show. What is it about being that kind of figurehead at the front, kind of giving direction that you thrive at so much? You seem to be so good at that role.
Well, I don't know about thriving on it. You just you get a situation. To go back to Tough Enough, that was an environment that I was, in for 15 years. I know and love that business. So that was kind of like, a walk in the park. Here with Redneck Island, these folks remind me of myself back before I got into the wrestling business. They're just small towns everywhere, and they're just hardworking, good folks, common people. And I put them through these challenges, and it's just my job to maintain the law and order on this show. It is not me versus them. It's them versus each other. But I am moderating and facilitating the process, and we've got to have some sense of, control and some flow for the show to work and for us to get everything done that we need to get done during the workday. So I tell you what, at the end of the day, it's a big family of people out there filming a damn good show.
We'd be remiss, of course, Steve, if we didn't ask you about how you're doing physically, and we ask not only because we want to know as fans of yours for years, but also because the constant question that you're so used to fielding at this point is, will we get one more match out of Stone Cold Steve Austin? Tell us about kind of the state of your health, and is the answer still never say never?
Well, first of all, as far as the health goes, I had a ACL, PCL grafted in my left knee after about many years of being able to skirt by without a knee surgery. I finally had to have one, and it was a doozy. So I had those 2 ligaments put in there. I'm 4 months out now. Probably have another 4 to go, give or take. And everything is going well. The knee is coming along outstanding. I'm very happy with the procedure. I have a lot more stability in my knee. I'm pain-free. So that's doing well. The rest of the carcass feels pretty good. Every now and then, I'm like a lot of guys. Sometimes you feel like you need a crane attached to your ceiling to pull yourself out of bed. But for the most part, by and large, I feel like $1 million considering everything I put myself through. So I feel good on a physical front. I'm working out very hard here at the Broken Skull Ranch in South Texas, where I'm down here for hunting season. And, again, never say never applies. I'm not openly campaigning for a match. But, obviously you're willing to listen to a business proposition down the road. But I'll tell you what, I have a lot of fun doing the acting things that I've done, hosting this show, Redneck Island. I hope this show is around for a long time. It's a lot easier on your body physically, and just from a fun standpoint, I'm around people that I like being around, and I'm wearing flip-flops, shorts, and a tank top all day, so I couldn't find a better gig than what I got.
Was that a transition for you, Steve? Maybe you find yourself getting a little Hollywoodized? Because I have to say, Stone Cold and flip-flops, I can't picture it.
Well, you got to understand, man, I live in Los Angeles, but I spend about, 3 or 4 months here at the ranch in Texas. When I'm in L.A., I don't wear anything but flip-flops and shorts because of the weather. And it's, if I have to go to a meeting, I'll put on a pair of tennis shoes. But man, I pretty much live in shorts and flip flops, other than the gym time. So, man, I tell you what, that Redneck Island is me taking my personal wardrobe over there and putting it on.
What you see is what you get. Everybody, Steve, of course, when they talk about what would be sort of the perfect opponent for you, if you decided to make that return, if the deal was right, is the current WWE champion CM Punk. Everybody points to that as the match that seems to be pitch perfect for you. Would you come back to work with anyone else at this point but CM Punk?
Well, I don't want to sit there and play matchmaker, because these guys have their storylines and, all their stuff going. But, just from a, I think, John Cena is a logical choice. Triple H would be another one. A couple of cats like that.
Sure. What do you think it is about CM Punk? I see you go back and forth with him on Twitter a lot. It seems like Punk is very interested, as one can understand, in keeping the fans buzzing about the potential of you guys meeting at some point. What do you think it is about Punk and his character that seems to have fans think about him as a good match for you?
Oh, I think he is a guy that paid his due. I just think there's parallels between the way he came up and the way I came up, and having to fight for respect and then get it. He runs his mouth a lot. He's a deep thinker. He doesn't just flap his gums about anything and everything. He seems to choose his words very carefully. But that being said, once he chooses his words, he lets fly with some great promos. He's a smooth technician in the ring. I consider him a very good worker. I like his psychology. A different animal than Stone Cold Steve Austin was, but again, I think that lends itself to why it'd be a good match, and I just see the two styles gelling.
Now, I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that always seemed that you stood up for, so to speak, when you were on top in the WWE all those years, is working with guys who really were fluid in-ring mechanics, guys who were exceptionally good at getting through the paces of a 20-minute match. Not necessarily, the guys who were the biggest stars, who had the most charisma, or, had the look that the WWE tends to push a lot. Was that something you found yourself, Steve, in your career lobbying hard for, to get in there with the guys like the Eddie Guerreros and the Jerichos and some of the guys who might not have quite been at that superstar level quite yet, but were so good in the ring that you just wanted to mix it up with them?
Well, especially with Eddie Guerrero, I actually requested to work with that guy because I was such a fan of his work. I can watch Eddie Guerrero work, or could watch him back in the day work, and, someone, just a casual fan, watch him work and see two different things. It was the little things that Eddie did which meant so much. It's just his body language, his nuances, just the way he carried himself and the way he executed certain things, which really stood out in my eye. But anytime you wanted to go out there in the ring, you wanted to work with someone, who was obviously, the more over someone is, the easier it is to work with them, because it's just that much easier. But you want to work with someone who's just kind of on the same page with you, and someone who's just not going to flat out kill you in the ring. The sledgehammers and the people who punch like sledgehammers, and the people who just throw you around like a rag doll. That's not fun. When you're working with a guy like Undertaker, Mick Foley, The Rock, Kurt Angle, Jericho, Triple H, guys that you totally trust 100%, man, that's a fun day at the office.
Do you feel like you eclipsed Hogan in your run, Steve?
Man, it's not for me to say that. Those are two different runs. Hogan was around for a very long time, and man, I've always respected that guy's career. He had a great one. I was around for probably about half that time, and at a zenith, or even shorter than that. But for the time I was around, as hot as I was, I don't know that that's ever been done. Well, and as a matter of fact, it has never been done. No one set the business on fire like I did. So there were two different runs. You can take the longevity of Hogan, or you can take the white hotness of Stone Cold, and that's for other people to argue about. I respect Hogan, and I had a damn good career, so it is what it is, and you can pick your own poison.
You mentioned before, Steve, your story and how it kind of parallels with what we were learning about, CM Punk's rise and, having to fight for respect. Did you ever think, honestly, when you were toiling in WCW in the mid-'90s, or, that transition between WCW and the WWF when you were in ECW and, the ringmaster gimmick, that there would come a time, did you think your career could possibly reach a point where you would be compared to Hulk Hogan?
Well, you know what? When you're in the trenches and you're doing it, you're just thinking about getting as high as you can. You don't know what the ride's going to be like once you get there. Then all of a sudden it happens, and then it's over, and then you start thinking about it. It's kind of like when I watched the video package the night I went to the Hall of Fame, and that was when I could finally, I was so far in the forest I couldn't even see the trees. So then it kind of dawned on me. So, but you know, to go through the process and everything, you're just kind of, you're working on the fly, and you're taking each day as it comes, and then you're adjusting accordingly. You know, in the back of your mind, you want to be at the top, and that's your goal to be at the top. It should be your goal to be at the top of anything you do, but you don't know what it's going to be like when you get there. So certainly, yeah, I didn't expect anything that I got, but let me tell you something, man. It's when I was on the bottom, when I was in the middle, you know, slumming down the roads, staying in cheap hotels, and you know, making $15 a night and driving 500 miles round trip. And the money's kind of tight, obviously, to do all those things, and you're starving to death. Man, those are some of the funnest, most fun days of your life. And then all of a sudden, you know, you kind of hit the big time, and things come a little bit easier, but the work becomes harder because you're getting pulled in every different direction. Let's just say it's a rocket ride that you never want to stop. The whole career from start to finish, from starving to being on top, it's a great process.
And, of course, the feud with Vince McMahon in 97, 98, 99, and even carried a bit longer than that on your returns, was the signature feud of your career, and so really some of the greatest television we've ever seen produced in the business, and really one of the best feuds ever. Can you talk about, Steve, why you think Vince McMahon in particular was such great foil for you to ascend like you did?
Well, I just think he was, you know, the classic, you know, that was kind of like employee versus boss, and that's to break it down in its most simple form. And, you know, he hated everything that I stood for, and I stood, you know, for blue-collar America, and there's a bunch of us out there, and he was the corporate guy. So, you know, everybody would always love to punch their boss in the mouth, and a simple explanation of it. And the way we, you know, told those stories, and, you know, when Vince needed to get heat, he did. When it was time for me to get a little up on him, I did. It was just a perfect lesson of psychology that we just judged on the fly and planned accordingly from week to week, and Vince was the master at that. And, you know, just such an unselfish performer and hungry to do big business and satisfy the fans. And, you know, there was a part of Vince that always wanted to be a wrestler, and he ain't the most graceful human being in the world, but I loved working with Vince McMahon because his passion and his desire to satisfy that crowd and go beyond is, you know, the exact same as mine. I wanted to be the best, and I was the best, and Vince McMahon demands the same thing out of himself.
When you wrestled him in a steel cage match, I think it was February 1999, he flew off the side of the cage and went through a ringside table at his age. When you watched him take that ride, were you afraid he might not get up?
I was in Memphis, Tennessee at the Pyramid. I remember it like it's yesterday. I remember that guy flying through the air and watching his head bounce off that table. And, you know, I'm up there hanging on the side of the cage, and I'm thinking, well, you know, I watched my language. I didn't know what to think about it. You know, I got down there, and we went on with it. I mean, that says everything about Vince McMahon right there, because he did not have to take that bump. He wanted to take that bump for not only the people there in that pyramid, but the people on pay-per-view. And it was a hell of a damn sight, and I don't know how many times that's been replayed. And I know it whipped his damn neck something fierce, but I know he's so proud of that bump each time he sees it. He just kind of gets that grin on his face. And, you know, he's a proud guy, and he's a billionaire, but he doesn't like to brag on himself. But, hey, that was a hell of a bump, man. And it says volumes for what that guy will do to satisfy his audience.
Sure. You mentioned that dynamic, which, of course, everybody really grasps, the boss versus the employee, blue-collar versus corporate. The character that Vince McMahon played throughout that program, Steve, to what degree is part of that actually who Vince is behind the scenes and actually being, you know, the executive that runs the WWE from day to day?
I think to a degree that's who he is. I mean, if you looked at Stone Cold Steve Austin, yeah, you know, to agree that's who I am. Obviously, on the street and in my life, way more toned down, but that's a dynamic of my personality, and I think that's why my thing worked so well. I worked hard. I wanted to satisfy the people. I wanted to make them happy, But that's me in a competitive environment, and I think that shades events in a competitive corporate environment. With sports entertainment as the crux of what you do. So yeah, is he that big in his personal life? No, but that's a big part of who he is.
Where did you get the idea to start saying what in 2001?
It was a silly little phone call that I was calling to leave Christian. I was calling Christian. He was at the gym, and I just started talking on his voicemail, leaving a stupid message. And I kept saying that what thing to him. And when I hung up after making that message, I thought to myself, hey, man, I'm onto something here. If you say what, that's how it evolved. But, I mean, just from a voice message on Christian's phone, it turned into what it turned into. And who would have ever thought that we put 4 letters on the front of a T-shirt and it'd sell like hotcakes, and people would still be saying it when people do a pause in their promos to this day.
It's amazing. Have you heard from some of the guys, maybe playfully, like, man, I'm having trouble doing my promos because everybody's saying what over me, and it's like they just want to do it for fun because they love saying it so much, and I feel like it's hard for me to get my message across because everybody's waiting to say what.
Well, Kurt Angle used to always, give me such a hard time about that. Austin, I'm going to kill you. And he had so much fun with it. Kurt's a tremendous guy. But, the way to work around that is, the people are just looking for that pregnant pause in there to insert that what. If you're on a mission and you've got something to say, you just don't give them that break in there. Just like I'm talking to you right now, if you don't give them that break, they can never say what. You see what I'm saying?
What?
Yep.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's true. You see guys, when fans start getting on that kick in an arena somewhere, they sort of speed through where they might want to make that pause because it seems, Steve, if the fans miss one opportunity to do it, they don't try to do it again. It's either they do it every time and then...
Right.
Yeah.
That start taking the wind out of their sails.
Right. Now, with that catchphrase, you still hear it today in arenas, and as we know, a lot of the audience these days are young children who came up following, the rise of John Cena in 05 and 06 and are big fans of Rey Mysterio as well. I think a lot of the kids that are saying what, Steve, might not even have necessarily seen you perform that often. Isn't that something?
What?
I'm so glad you did it, man. I was hoping to get that. I was hoping to get that.
And that's been 10 years ago. So there's a whole new dynamic of fans that are coming in there, and they're just doing it because that's what people are doing. They probably don't even know why. I would imagine at least 50% of them. And I think, it's funny. They do replay so much of my stuff on WWE that, I'm always amazed when I see a 5-year-old Stone Cold fan. And I'm like, well, I've been gone a long time. How does he know about Stone Cold? Because I'm very aware of the fact that I've been gone a long time. But, these people still play their DVDs and their stuff at home, and I'll hear on my Twitter account all the time how they turn their kids on to Stone Cold. But, yeah, to go back to what you were saying, some of these kids, obviously they've never seen me perform, but they just feel that, or from what they're feeling in that arena, that's what you do when you're at wrestling is say what.
Steve, let's close with this. It's been a journey, and I wonder if there's anything in your career looking back that you wish you had or hadn't done.
Man, I tell you what, sometimes, like maybe I'd have handled the situation with Brock Lesnar better at Atlanta, or maybe, the pile driver would have never happened, or maybe this, that, or whatever. You can think of certain things for sure, because hindsight is 20/20. Hey, but it all happened the way it did. It was a hell of a ride, and I got no regrets for nothing, and I had a blast, and I want to thank all the damn Stone Cold Steve Austin fans or Steve Austin fans for all their support always. And one last reminder that Redneck Island, Episode 2, tomorrow, CMT Network at 9, 8 Central. And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
Perfect. Stone Cold Steve Austin on Mouthpiece Wrestling. Thanks so much, and best of luck in the future, Steve.
Thank you, man. Nice interview. I enjoyed talking to you.